A few videos back, I took a look at how to write a scene. In this video, I'm going to cover 4 common mistakes I see writers make when writing a scene. While I think it is important to show you how to write a scene like I did in that previous video, I also think it is important to show you how not to write a scene so that you can be aware of some of the problems your scenes may have. Let's begin. Number 1, the scene does not turn the story. Every scene should turn the story. Many writers have heard this before, but they don't actually have any idea what that means. What I mean is that every good scene will do one or more of these things. 1, show characters taking serious action towards what they want. 2, show characters receiving information that changes their situation. Or 3, shows events or other character action dramatically changing their current situation. This is what I mean when I talk about a story turn. If your scene doesn't have this, whether at a small or large level, your scene will fail. It will bog down the momentum of your story. This doesn't just happen at a major turning point or the climax of your story, it needs to happen in each scene. Every scene you write should change your story by showing character action or by a character learning new information. When your scenes don't have this, they become boring, unnecessary, and slow the pace of your story. This is a scene from Star Wars Episode 4: A New Hope, where Han Solo speaks to Jabba the Hutt about the money Han owes Jabba. The problem with this scene is that it does not turn the direction of the story. This scene doesn't change Han's situation. He doesn't make any changes in his actions after this scene, and nothing attacks or harms Han in this scene that changes anything about the rest of the story. Part of the problem is that this scene is redundant. Earlier in the film, Greedo has already reminded Han of the money that Han owes Jabba, and that's why Greedo was sent to find Han. So this scene with Jabba is simply repetitive. No one learns any important new information, not the audience and not Han. This is what I mean when I say that a scene doesn't turn the story. Han exits this scene and nothing has really changed at all in the story. Han is already taking Luke to Alderaan. Han already knows about his debt to Jabba. It simply doesn't move the story in any direction whatsoever. When you're looking at why a scene may or may not be working, you need to ask yourself questions that will tell you whether or not this scene is actually turning your story. Does your scene show a character taking an action that moves the story forward? Does your scene have a character learning new information that changes their situation? How is the world of your story different after this scene? Number 2, scenes go on for way too long. We are already past the point of the scene, but the scene continues. You may have heard the popular phrase, "get in late, get out early," in regards to good scene writing. What other script teachers mean when they say this is that your scene has one particular purpose. It will turn the story in a specific way. Once it has done that, it's time to exit the scene. The problem arises when writers forget that they should end the scene after they have reached the turning point. Let's take a look at this scene from the Justice League. So this scene is already off to a bad start, mainly just giving exposition to the audience, and mostly exposition the audience already knows.
Even for a nanosecond, its energy will cascade, form a loop, and feed on each other.
And that's it?
But even when we get through the point of the scene, which is to give this exposition to the audience, the scene doesn't end. It continues with this overly long bad joke where Aquaman is sitting on the lasso of truth. So the story turn in the scene was supposed to be the exposition given in the beginning. This is already bad enough, but what makes it worse is once that story turn is achieved, the scene doesn't end. It continues with this bad joke and stalls the momentum of the story. This is what I mean when I say that a scene goes on too long, or stays too long after the story is turned. And this is what writing teachers mean when they say get out early. It means exit your scene as quickly as possible after the scene has turned the story. Anything past that becomes wasted time that will slow the momentum of your story down. To fix this scene problem, ask these questions. What is the purpose of the scene? Where is the specific point that the story is turned? And does my scene end right after the story is turned, or does it keep going? Number 3, bad scene context. When writers try to write a scene, many times they think too much about that scene and not enough about the rest of the story. Scenes are first and foremost about context, what happened before the scene and what will happen afterwards. A scene can be well structured but still be unnecessary and therefore not a good scene for the screenplay. Sometimes you think you need to fix a certain scene when in reality the problem lies elsewhere in another part of the story. In Straight Outta Compton, there is a scene where we meet Snoop Dogg. Snoop Dogg disrespects Suge Knight, causing a quick conflict between Dre and Suge Knight. This scene doesn't actually work for the story. Let me explain. At this point in the story, the audience already knows that there's tension between Suge Knight and Dre, and later we will see two major scenes where they have much larger disagreements. Snoop Dogg also holds no narrative weight in the story. He only has a couple other scenes, none of which affect the plot. The scene isn't necessarily bad on its own. It could be used to introduce an important character and change the dynamic between two major characters. But in context with the rest of this particular story, the scene is unnecessary. While Snoop Dogg is an important piece of history in real life in regards to the careers of the different members of NWA, he is poorly incorporated into the film narrative of Straight Outta Compton. Scenes do not exist in a bubble. Scenes should be deeply connected with the rest of the story, and if they are not, they should be removed. When trying to fix this problem, ask these questions. Does this scene affect the actions and goals of my main character? Is this scene important for the philosophical and external conflicts of my story? And do the actions of the side characters actually affect the main philosophical conflict of my story? Number 4, exposition dump. Exposition dumps are when the scene has a clear purpose, yet that purpose is to stop the flow of the story and give massive amounts of information to the audience. Many times the exposition is necessary, but it comes at the wrong time, or there is simply so much of it that it stops the flow of the story. For a look at a bad exposition dump, we return to the Justice League. In this scene, Wonder Woman explains Steppenwolf and what his plan is to destroy the Earth. She also gives the backstory of Steppenwolf and how he came to Earth previously and was beaten back. Now, it is important for the story to know who Steppenwolf is, but this exposition doesn't really change what the characters are doing. Bruce Wayne is already recruiting the Justice League, and he already knows that there are mysterious aliens on Earth. So this just removes all questions or intrigue the audience might hold about this new villain. While it is important to give information to the audience, make sure you deliver the right information at the right time. What I mean by this is make sure that every piece of information you give to the audience is story necessary. Spending your time just having characters talk about backstory that doesn't actually affect the story is a waste of time. And make sure that when you deliver your exposition, you deliver it in a way where the information changes the character situation and forces them to adapt. When trying to fix these problems, ask these questions. Does the audience need to know this information right now? Does the information given actually attack the characters and turn the story? Is there a way to spread this information out and still have the exposition attack the characters and change their situation? If I were to condense these ideas into one simple phrase, I would say that you need to know exactly how a particular scene turns your story. What action does the character take that will change their situation? What information do they learn that will change their situation? And what happens to them that will force them to take different action? If your scene doesn't have clear answers to these questions, then you're going to have scene problems.